Hi folks, it's been a while since I made a video. Quite frankly, I haven't felt like making one. I've been going through some hard times. I titled this video because I had some advice given to me at the end of last year when things started to not go so well in my life, and the advice was you can't save your arse and your face at the same time, and that advice has rung true for me many times, and I'm trying to hold that in mind with me now as I go about desperately trying to save my arse, basically. The big news is that the site where this lorry is parked is closing, and I have until mid-October, that's my deadline. The past 6 months have not been great for progress. Progress has been made, but it's been slow, it's been hampered. Some of the factors, like are beyond my control, like COVID. It's been one of those times where, you just, the odds are stacking and stacking and stacking against you. It's been really challenging, and I've really had to, particularly in the past couple of weeks, since I had this news about the site closing, I've really had to channel the anger and the resentment that I feel about various situations in my life, and I've really had to make an effort to channel that into this project and try and sort of be a crucible for transmuting that angry energy and that resentful energy and try and put it into something productive. And really, it sounds like cheesy, really trying to make contact and communicate with the original idea that I had and the drive that I had, and the sort of travelling ancestral spirits that I feel were the ones to start pushing me on this journey. Remind myself to be true and live true to my sort of needs. I really feel like it's like on my life's purpose. Like I have this need to move around and be nomadic, and I'm not living true to myself unless I try and carry that dream through. And so I will keep fighting until the end, until this truck is taken away from me in the worst case scenario. I don't care what people say, I don't care what I have to do to get it done, but as long as I've got breath in my body, I will be carrying on. So on that note, I've got quite a lot to show you. I actually shot a lot of footage on a different phone, and I dropped it in the sea. So I'm going to try and give you a recap. The other reason I've not been filming much is because basically the only person I've had helping me is my friend Max, and he absolutely detests being filmed, and I kind of had to have a little bit of a chat with him the other day, because I actually find the filming of it I've decided that it is actually quite important to me, and we didn't have a disagreement about it, but at the end of the day, this is my project, and if I want to film it, I'll film it. So there's going to be bits that I'm doing which I'll film a bit more. I am trying to pin him down. I don't know if you can see in the back here about these windows, because I had a massive problem with these windows. I don't know what I thought when I bought them, but I thought I could just buy pretty rubber seals, like you get on a car window, like the old style car windows, and just fit them in, and that Bob's your uncle, but apparently that was wrong. So I had real trouble visualizing what the fuck I was going to do with these windows. I was panicking that I was going to have to get new windows, and it was just a whole headache. But luckily Max came to my rescue, and he's built frames for them, so I might put that in a separate video about how they get made, because I'm not great at visualizing how things will happen until I actually do it, or until I watch somebody else do it. So I'm not going to try and sit and explain to you what he did and how it's all going to fit into the truck, but we have got window frames. Max has decided he is brave enough to actually cut through the fiberglass and fit the windows himself, so that will be a separate video coming. As for other things, I am still washing wool. Don't recommend buying fleeces, to be quite honest with you. Don't get me wrong, when it's clean and it's ready to go, it's great stuff. But my God, I feel like I just never want to see another fleece again in my life. Thermo wrapping is mostly done, and got a little bit of vapor barrier. We did a whole load of stuff in the Luton. I'll just show you. This is like literally the most awkward space to film in because it's kind of cramped up here, but I don't know if I shot any footage from here but of what it was like before. In the very beginning they had bolted this off completely with that thing down there, so we removed that. Then when we got up here, there was like this frame, you can kind of see the outline of it, like big metal frame, which Max unbolted and basically like drilled off. It was quite a mission. This is the cut through to the cab, which we've unbolted as well, so we can get into the cab from this way. There was all this kind of nasty carpet on here, which you can see that we've pulled off. That was a grotty job actually, probably my least favourite job of so far, because the adhesive underneath was all like perished and it was just unbelievably dusty and disgusting to remove it. So I'm glad that that is mostly done. Then once we'd got peeled all the carpet off, there was MDF, like sort of like a plyboard on here, which we ripped off, and underneath that there was this polystyrene, which is actually in pretty decent nick, so I'm going to leave that. And what I've done on the other side is literally just tape the thermo wrap. It's not finished yet, obviously. Tape the thermo wrap up and around it. I'm not going to be able to insulate more than this up here because as you can see, oh God, it's so difficult to film it. This whole base here, and there's another bolt on the other side, is basically like a giant door that comes up, right? To allow the cab to tilt forwards when you need to access the engine. So as you can see, if this whole floor has to move up, this is the polystyrene. There's a little lip here and a little bit of metal and about, I'd say, less than a centimetre gap between here and where the floor has to. Now I can, in a worst case scenario, cut a tiny bit more off of here to give me a little bit more space to play with, but actually the outside of the cab, here I'll show you, like the floor of this, there's my very dirty cab, try not to fall down there. The wood of this floor is literally like, look, there's the gap and that's the top. That's the top of the cab there. So there's a big air gap here. So, you know, I think it's going to be colder up here. I've got plans for this base, but I can't cut off more than I'd say about another centimetre, because if I do that, then you will start seeing the gap between the top of the cab and the base of this. Like there's really not very much, I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but you'll literally have like a gap of air right there, which is not great, obviously. So yeah, that might be an issue, but so I'm just going to thermo wrap it and then I'm hoping to be able to clad straight onto it. There was polystyrene up here already when we ripped all this off, but it was pretty nasty because the roof had been leaking. Part of the reason I haven't insulated this side yet is because all this rust here is going to need to be treated before I cover it up. We have solved the issue of the leak, so hopefully we won't have any more problems with this space. But yeah, the rust needs to be dealt with before I can do to that side what I've done to this side. But it looks pretty neat. I think it's going to work. I've bought some cladding, very, very thin. I think it's 8 mil for up here, because I've got such a tiny gap to work with. There's polystyrene behind here as well, and I've stuffed, there was like kind of, it didn't fit that well, so I've stuffed bits of sheep's wool and taped that all in. Hello, it's me from the future. In that clip you can see two like black rods on either side of the lutein, and I knew that they were something to do with the mechanism for the tilt cab, but I didn't quite know how they had a part in it. Somebody had told me it was part of the tilt cab. But anyway, my mind was a bit blown the other day when I went down there, and there were some truckers in the yard, and I got talking to them. I can't remember how we sort of got onto it, but anyway, the situation ended with about 3 different men like doing things to my truck that I had no idea that it could do. And it turns out they tilted the cab, which was like full on seized because of how long it's been stood there. But the thing that really, because I didn't even know where the tilt cab mechanism was, I know where it is now. They contain compressed nitrogen or something, and basically the whole front wall of the Luton, I could not believe it when they did it. I was like, that can't be how it works, and it flipping was. The whole front wall of the Luton, it swings open like a car boot. Like it actually, like that's what those things are. They're just like the things in your boot that help hold the door of the, you know, the boot up, right? So, and like the whole thing just went like that and opened. This just totally, like, I had not visualized that was how it was going to work. But once they had done it, it was obvious to me that the cab would never be able to tilt in the way that I saw it, because it would have hit the like roof, you know, hit that front wall of the Luton. So it was total serendipity that they were down there on that day, because I'd already started to insulate the Luton area, and like I'd taped stuff over, and that had like that when they did it, it was just like ripped it all out, because you know it needs to have that mobility to actually be able to open. And you know it's not just for the tilt cab, but like I'm really happy in a way, even though it's going to complicate things about how I have to insulate up there. I'm really happy about it, because when you open it up, right, I will take a video at some point. Like it's really, really stiff at the moment to do it, and you definitely need 2 people, because there's 2 like bolts down on either side on the outside that you have to like wrench open with all your strength. 2 people have to do that, and then you have to like push it up, so it's impossible for one person to do. But when I was up there and the thing was open, it was just amazing. Like it was like you could lie in the bed up there, and if it was like a sunny day or a clear night, you can just look out from your bed, like this amazing view. And you're so high, right? You're so much higher than you would be in, like, you know, like you get a lot of like Instagram shots of people like in their vans with looking at this amazing view from their bed. Like it would be so amazing in the truck, because you are 12 feet high. Like, yeah, so it's going to make it really, really complicated to do the Luton. I'm a little bit intimidated. I was a little bit intimidated the whole time, because these kind of men obviously had so much knowledge, and I was embarrassed, to be honest with you, that I didn't even know that about my own truck. But yeah, so that kind of changes things a little bit, but I'm not seeing it as a negative, because I think once it's sorted and I've maybe put a handle on the front so you can do it from a bit more easily up from the Luton, it will be an amazing like asset to the experience of being in the lorry. The only other thing that I want to mention is that when they popped that thing up at the front, it really, really fucked up the chroma pole that we'd painted over the unbeknownst to me, because I wasn't the one who painted it. It's cracked it really badly, because obviously it was like a flat surface, and now it's gone like that, and so all the chroma pole is like buckled, and we've had loads and loads of rain over the past like 72 hours, and I haven't been down there, and I'm a little bit terrified that everything is going to be totally wet around that joint. And that is why in the video you can see all the rust, because that's exactly where that join, where it does come up, is exactly where it's been leaking. So I'm going to have to find a solution to sealing that up properly. I think what I might try and do is find some like flat flexible rubber and somehow stick that over the join to try and maintain flexibility, but also make it totally watertight. So yeah, I have to get on with stuff. This wood down here is wood for the door. I've been lucky enough to, Max's parents have been like doing house renovations, and they're getting rid of their old front door, so I can have that door. So Max is going to build in the same fashion as for the windows. Max is going to build a frame for the door, which I think pretty much decided to seal off these back doors completely, because there is no way that I can have the space, because of where the bolts are in the doors, to cut a space in the back for a door. So just like I did this wall where there was a door, I'm going to seal that off completely, and I'm going to cut a door in the end here. So when you walk in and there's that drop down, this will be like the utility area, like the cloakroom, so I don't end up walking a whole load of mud and stuff into the truck. I can leave all my shoes out there and everything. So I'm going to cut a door right in the back, seal off these doors, and that's the end of it. So the only access points will be through that door and here through the cab. Max had the very good, don't ask me what I'm going to do with the roof yet, I've not thought that far ahead. Flying by the seat of my pants. If I shove a load of wool down in the walls and just push it down, it will eventually slide down over time. It will compress over time. I don't think it will do it that much because my wool is very light and fluffy, but it will eventually, with the movement of the truck as we're driving along, it will eventually drop down. So I bought this massive roll of, it is 25 mil hook only Velcro with like, it's like self-adhesive, and I'm gonna run, I think probably in each of these sections, 2 strips of this up, and so that will at least be a little bit of extra sticky to kind of keep everything up. Okay guys, I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer and show you what I'm doing. I love that I'm trying to say this in a tone of authority as though I've got any idea of what I'm doing, but it seems to be working all right. I'm actually quite pleased with it, and better even than that is that it's a job that I can do on my own without having an extra pair of hands. So I've staple gunned all along here the bubble wrap. I've overlapped it with the next one along as well, just for a bit of extra security, and I've done these 2 strips of Velcro all the way up. I think when I get to the top I might put in an extra strip going horizontally, just because that's the top one and that's the one that's most likely to slip down. So what I'm doing now is I've just got my bag of wool here and I'm tearing it, sort of loosening it up a bit. Some of these bags are more felted than others depending on whatever detergent I had at the time, because obviously if you want to keep wool not felted you have to use like a Castile soap or something like that, but I didn't always have that, and I couldn't always afford to buy something specifically for the wool, so I kind of just used what I had around, because I don't really want to pack it in mega tight. Like, I don't want it to be like, ah, you know, hard as rock, like, because it needs the air pockets obviously to have that insulation ability. So when I've got up to like the second layer, I just pull the bubble wrap up and then I just staple it up here. 1 staple at the top, 1 staple at the bottom, and then that gives me kind of like a pouch that I can keep filling. This is definitely a poor man's solution. I don't really recommend this as an option unless you are hell-bent on using wool for your conversion and you can't afford a product like Thermofleece, which is obviously was my issue. You know, I wanted it for the eco rating, but also because it was non-toxic. I get that I'm using bubble wrap on top of it, which isn't great, but I honestly couldn't think of another material that was going to be both sort of durable and not going to, you know, have the potential to become damp. I'm going to put a vapor barrier over this as well, but I thought if I was using something like a cloth, like sheets or something, it's just too dangerous with the risk of condensation. Like, I do not want these walls to be mouldy on the inside. If I kind of put the bubble wrap up and feel it, I can kind of feel what spots are like thinner. Obviously working, and it'll obviously do the job, and you know, I can't not do it now that I've got it all. But unless you've got unlimited time here's my staple gun. I'm just pulling the bubble wrap up.
I'm going to put in 1, 2, get my head under it, 3, 4, 5 on the bottom, and then along the top. So I'm doing like 2 rows of staples. This is probably overkill, but the bubble wrap is quite fragile, and I feel like if one rips, at least I've got more to hold it in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've obviously got 2 that I put in here earlier, holding it up. And there you have it. Here I go again. I'm just happy that for once one of my ideas appears to be working. Oh, that was it, yeah. So I mean, no one really watches these videos. This is all just for my benefit when I come to watch this stuff years later, if I ever want to do this again, because I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone a year ago, you know. So I forgot what I was saying again. I'm not wanting. I can see that a bit. I can see that, you know, maybe some people would say, oh, you've not got enough. It's not thick enough, you know, the insulation, because the gap between, you know, the fiberglass and the outside of this is not much. It's kind of that. But, you know, I've used the foil face bubble wrap. I've used this wool, which has very good insulative properties, and I'm going to have a wood burner in here anyway. And to be honest, even when in the winter when we were working to put in the bubble wrap on, when me and Max were in here, and it was, you know, it was not like -10 or anything, but it was 3-4 degrees. Some days it was icy, so I guess maybe it was near 0. And we had like a little electric fan here, like literally about this big, going with the windows and the door shut, and it was like warm in here, and that was before we'd even put the insulation on. So I think I'm going to try and get like maybe a 4 or 5 kilowatt wood burner, and when you've got like a cooker going and stuff like that, I don't really foresee that it's going to be a problem.
Okay folks, that is the finished result. That was a mission. That took me way longer than I thought it would. I'm not actually sure that Velcro tape is necessary, to be honest. I went through almost that whole roll and it cost a tenner just doing this one wall. So I'm not sure I'm going to get that again. I haven't really decided yet. I did have one little thing I wanted to say down here on the floor. It's really ugly what I've done, but there was a gap, you can see just like here, on the side there's a gap, and that's the floor of the truck, what's attached to the chassis, and this is the fiberglass wall. And I'm a bit worried about this gap, about water coming up, and I was really worried that water was going to wick up through the gap and go up into the wall. So to alleviate my anxiety, what I have done is get a couple of like long thin rectangles of this polystyrene stuff. It's called like Jabolite. I find the name really funny. I didn't want to buy it at all, but it was necessary for up in that bit because there was nothing else that could have done the job quite the same. So I had some extra bits of this, and I just cut 2 long rectangles and like pushed it down into that crack as hard as I could, and then pushed another bit, like tucked the bubble wrap up and like pushed another bit to like wedge the bubble wrap flush against the back wall of this. And I'm hoping that will be like enough pressure and enough of a water resistant material that it will stop it from being able to, any moisture that might come through, like as you're driving and there's like spray off the wheels of the cab, might stop it from wicking through into the wall. Because obviously if the wall gets wet, that's really not something we want. That would be bad news. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with my wool wall. So it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, and obviously there's a lot still to do.